were talking and discussing about my experiences in Portland and his experiences in Portland. And Uriah brought up a very good point about, he seemed like I was a little bit distracted the entire time I was there, a little bit, in cahoots out of myself. And I had a lot of time to reflect about my trip and, where I'm going in life. What do I want to accomplish and what goals I have. And, I think in the last few years I've actually accomplished so many things. I've failed to see the accomplishments and appreciate them for what they are, and I've kind of ran out of goals to have, like buying a house, getting my first brand new car, figuring out financial situations and stability. My house is my retirement fund right now. I'm a disabled veteran, so thanks to tax dollars I receive a check every month, and that's enough to pay my mortgage. So I want to thank you as civilians and taxpayers, for that. That really does mean a lot to us veterans. It's not, not all of us are like, oh, it's free money, see how much we can get for that. It's like, hey, we've been through some shit, and we mentally, had some shit taken away from us, and we try to reintegrate back into civilian life, and full integration is not really 100% thing, and sometimes you're left with like I have a sleeping condition. As I was talking about my depression, I can sleep for 16, 18 hours a day for the rest of my life and be perfectly okay with that. But that's not why I was put on this planet, So, unfortunately, it's such an issue that it does mess with my, ability to show up to work on time. And I've been lucky that my last few employers have been private employers, and they care. I don't take advantage of it, but 15, 20 minute late, we'll look the other way as long as work is getting done. That was kind of their attitude. They're not this big corporation that needs all these guidelines to fire people. It's kind of a case by case situation. I said, yes, I'm a veteran, and I go to the VA, and I have certain issues that I refuse to take pharmaceuticals for because I've had other veterans become even more suicidal or become suicidal on these medications they're giving them, and I don't want to have to ever deal with that situation. I want to be clear, and I want to be able to, the problem I have with pharmaceuticals is they take control of your brain for you. And I believe, I believe somewhat into self-healing, especially the mind. I think that's the root of, therapy and everything, is that you're self-healing your mind through words, through communication, through a counselor, a guide, somebody you can bring all your problems and ideas to. And that's also why actually my last therapist agreed, we agreed upon with mushrooms, is it's great for self-reflection. And I've made a lot of life choices because of I had a problem. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what direction to take. And I had a very honest, insightful conversation with myself on what steps I need to take in life. And so far, it hasn't failed me. I mean, yeah, there's been steps back, but that's everything in life. Going back to what I was saying, I lost it. Probably something about veterans. Hey everybody, I just wanted to finish that video from yesterday. I went to my girlfriend. I was on the way to my girlfriend's house, and I was already late. And oh, I was just space casing. But anyway, so I rewatched the video because I wasn't even sure what my point was. But I started out with talking about how Uriah was talking about his perception of what was going on in my mind while I was in Portland, and he had a really insightful quote, or not quote, but really insightful thing that he said, and I kind of wish we caught it on camera. But generally, my general feeling towards the Pacific Northwest, how I grew up there and I was raised in that culture, and I left that culture due to my military service for 3.5 years, and I came back, and as I discussed, I came back and I didn't feel like I really even belonged there because it had kind of changed and switched gears so much. And then being back there, just these last 2 weeks, I don't recognize that place anymore. It's sad. It's sad that you can, and I can only imagine, I can only, put myself in other people's shoes that have had, even in first world countries, or, and I'm not saying it's that severe, but that it's sad that I come back to my birthplace that you know, that's cemented the person I am. Well, not cemented, but helped form the person that I am. I believe we grow and learn every day, and I don't recognize it. I don't recognize the culture. I don't recognize the people. I don't recognize the buildings. I don't, I barely recognize the roads I drive down, and just the mentality of that town is just completely shifted due to everybody that has decided to all move there at one time. And so it's like being a foreigner in your own hometown. It's it's an interesting perspective to be a foreigner in the place that you grew up with, the place that you knew. But I've moved around a lot, and I've had a lot of abilities to or opportunities to change who I am due to my surrounding culture. You know, I currently live in a town. Well, I'm technically not even in city limits, but a town of 500 people out in the Midwest here. I think I looked up Portland Metro, not Portland alone, but I think Portland Metro is around 5 million or something like that. I know Portland alone is not a million, but anyways, you can look that up for me. But the point being is that a metro area that's about 5 million, and going down to 500, and I live right next to public land. I live. Army Corps of Engineers owns the property 900 meters away from my back door, and there's a horse trail, very close to my house, and thanks to taxpayers, I am allowed to utilize that property whenever I freely feel like it, and and I don't pay taxes on it. I don't own the land or anything, and that's a wonderful thing to have, and to be surrounded by, one of Missouri's most beautiful lakes, Mark Twain Lake. It's a man-made lake, but it's still a beautiful area to be in, and I think that's partly why I came. I keep joking that every time I move, I go to a smaller town. When I initially came out here to the Midwest, I was living in Hannibal, kind of as a launching point to start my new life out here, and it's a rundown town of I think their largest population was in the 70s, and it was 21,000. They're decreasing every day, going down to, I think they're down to 17,000 and some change. and but you know, it's nice to be out here where nobody's at, and be in a be in a place of such natural, or you know, I would say natural beauty. I mean, you know, there's a lake, there's fishing, there's the dam. You know, I mean, that's not natural, but you know, I mean, it's all scenic out here, and it's beautiful, and I'm glad that I can. I don't even have to get in my car to see it. You know, and I'm in a great location. Yeah, it's a little bit of city in the country because it is a sub. I live in a subdivision, but you know, I have great neighbors. You know, I know I've gotten to know them over almost a year of living here. They're all amazing people, and they, you know, some of them are retired, and some of them run their own businesses, and it's just 8 little houses, you know, around a little oval, and you know, we keep to ourselves and we keep close at the same time, and respect each other's privacy. So it's, I might as well feel like I own a house on, you know, hundreds. I don't know how many. It's been a while since I looked up the entire acreage of this place, but I believe it's in the hundreds of acres of public land out here, and you know, to switch gears a little bit, I think for my conversation from Uriah yesterday, I was throwing ideas back at him, and you know, my first goal right now is to put this beautiful home that I purchased, fully furnished, on Airbnb, and make a little bit income off that, so it's self-sustained and I have a self-sustainable income. And I think is my main goal is to really, I don't really want to go back to work. Um, and it sounds really selfish, I know, because you know, you have to do the grind every day, and you have to pay your taxes, and you have to do this and that. But I've been researching passive incomes for quite a few months now, and I put myself in a situation by buying this home, and that was part of the appeal of buying this home. If shit hits the fan, like it kind of has. Um, I wouldn't say it's so bad. I've survived worse, but you know, I can make a passive income off my own property, and rent it out. So for a vacation home, vacation purposes only, because this that was the original intention of this home, anyways. The elderly couple I bought it from, it was a second home, and it had never been lived in full time before. I'm the first full time person in the. It was built in '89, you know, to take residence here. So it's definitely set up nice, and you know, for those who have seen it can agree that, you know, it was it was a really great opportunity for me, and now it's time for me to utilize that opportunity. Um, you know, time for me to get in the RV that I purchased last November. It was a '91 Toyota Dolphin, if anybody's familiar with those. Needs a little resto work on it. So I gotta definitely start crossing my T's and dotting my I's. I need to figure out getting my home vacation proof. There's a lot of work involved in that. There's a lot of information as well on the internet for that. So I'm not going to go into the details. I might link a couple. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother you. I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably pretty internet savvy anyways. A simple Google search. I keep telling people it's 2017. The world's information is at your fingertips. Hell, I'm doing this from my phone, not a $1,200, $5,000 video camera. And, you know, by the end of the day, it'll be on the internet. But anyways, going back to what I was saying, yeah, I think Airbnb. I was talking to an owner of a couple cabins down here. His name's Kurt. He owns the Cannon Dam General Store, and he said he was giving me some tips and hints, just local information. That's another thing. If you're doing Airbnb, get some local information, and that's where a lot of I've been doing research. There's been a lot of bad media about Airbnb, but there's also been bad media about Uber and Lyft. And when you have these new business models that come out, everybody knows it. The media is just so inept. I think that's the correct word to jump on bad information. You know, not not information that's invalid, but information that's not conductive to the business. And the greatest example I was told, or heard, or read, or listened to, I don't know where I got this information from, but it was stated that oh yeah, it was on a YouTube channel the other day when I was doing research on Airbnb. When Uber and Lyft first came out, they were talking about, oh, criminals are doing this, they don't do background checks and all this other stuff, or even the opposite of, people getting jacked, doing Ubers and Lyft, or bad things happening to them. Well, it turns out statistically the same thing happens to cab drivers. It also turns out statistically the same bad things happen to hotel owners, people that do legitimate business, licensed and bonded and insured, bed and breakfasts, that kind of thing. Statistically, the same stuff happens. But since this is a new technology, and society has this yin and yang to suppress something new as well as propel it forward at the same time. The negative side is you will have naysayers that say, oh, well, look at this guy, he had, $30,000 of damages done to his home, and, Airbnb didn't back him up or anything like that. Or this other guy, he had a squatter, and they had to go to court and figure all this out. Airbnb, from what I understand, is a vessel. It is a highway. It is a channel for you to create an income. And it is not their responsibility to figure everything out for you legally. They are like a Craigslist, or they're like a nickel ad. Back of the newspaper, you had to, pay so many pennies per word and all that other stuff. And, their main focus is advertising your location. They have an algorithm. Well, they'll put you on the top of the list for the first, I think it's 2 to 4 weeks. Then they'll kind of see how you do. And if you start getting really good reviews, they'll keep you at the top of the list. They'll keep you in, because they like someone explained to me, they are there to make money. They are there to make money. That is their main goal, and they're going to try and do that as ethically possible. So I mean, it's really your responsibility to know your local laws. Your responsibility to, you know, if you have a $15,000 Van Gogh in your house and you decide to let some complete stranger in there, well, it's like my favorite saying, keep honest people honest. Why would you do that? If you have, some guy was saying, if you have a glass coffee table, people are people, and they don't own it. So, I mean, and I'm even guilty of it. I've been in a hotel like, crank the heat up, and, I'm not throwing chairs through the plaster and the walls or anything like that, but, causing excessive damage. But I'm on vacation when I'm in a hotel. Last thing I want to do is adult and pick up after myself and be responsible for anything. Call that kind of selfish, but that's kind of just, my inner voice sometimes. So, make sure you have a place set up that is kind of commercial, you have commercial fixtures in there, because, one guy was saying if you have someone rent out your house for 3 days a week, you know, something or another, and he came to this equation of 100 people a year. That's 100 people a year coming in and out of this place. So you kind of need to have a sturdy environment for that to culture, to create a good business and a good model. I've had a couple of my friends or people, when I've brought up Airbnb, cringe. And even Kurt, I talked to Kurt, the owner of the Cannon Dam general store there. He utilizes Airbnb just for the winter months, and he says it's great when you don't have a lot of places to, or when you don't have a lot of units to fill, as far as like hotels, or if you have 16 or 20 units, it's more profitable to actually use a company that takes care of your legal manners, your taxes, all that all the fine nitty gritty stuff that will eat up the hours of your day, especially if you own a general store at the same time. So that's great and all if you have over 15 units to do it the other way, to do it to have a dedicated company that takes care of all the good stuff. Excuse me, all the good stuff for you. Anyways, still doing good, still in high spirits. I kind of wish the sun would show up. I spent 2 weeks in Portland with overcast, and it seems like I brought it with me, and it doesn't seem like sun's gonna come back for another maybe Monday. I don't know. I didn't look past Sunday on the schedule, on the forecast here, so looks like I'm in for a lot of thunderstorm and clouds. Yeah, so I'm just trying to keep busy, cleaning up the house, getting it back to square one. I did a lot of the initial spring cleaning before I left for my trip, so that's nice. I got a guy that wants to buy my 67 Charger. It's sad to see that go, but it's time to let that dream. I bought that. That was a present to myself in Iraq in 2009, and I just haven't had the financial means to even begin to restore it. So, time to detach myself of earthly possessions, I guess, is kind of my, my next stage in my life. And, I turned 30 this past 15th of April here. And my biggest regret is I didn't do enough. I didn't go see enough with my life. And I'm only getting older. Physically, I'm starting to feel that. But my grandparents are an inspiration right now because they spend their golden years in the RV, and they have their clubs and their niches, and they're doing, just fantastic with that. I think that's a wonderful way to spend your retirement. But I want to be able to do some of these things while I'm still young. I want to be able to still go see these things while I can climb, 15,000 steps to, whatever, or, hike 1,000 feet up, or, those are extreme examples, but kind of touching on my video from yesterday, there's too many beautiful things in this planet. And if you've never driven across the country, I've driven across the country on the 10 about 6 or 7, 8 times when I was in Fort Hood. And then I've now driven across the 80 and 84, both directions 3 times. So I've done it, one way 6 times now. And this continent is amazing. Just even from the highway, just the contrast of, if you know anything about tectonic plates or anything like that, I do advise you to look up just a little bit of that and have an understanding of how the continents move, and watching that fly by your windows, and going straight Like when you're going east to west on the 80 and you're going through Nebraska and Wyoming, there's a point you get to in Wyoming when I did that video of the snow and everything where you get to 8,300 feet up in the air. And when you're coming from east to west, it's like wait a minute, how did that happen? Because it's such a gradual way or gradual slope upwards. And then if you're coming, or if you're still going east to west and you're going, towards Salt Lake, you see it. It's a roller coaster ride. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's as Uriah said. Well, he said this on the coast, but it was kind of a similar terrain of up and down and left and right, and you look out the window looking up at a hill, as I call a hill, he would call a mountain, and he said, especially going through the redwood forests in North Cali there, it makes you feel small, and claustrophobic at the same time. And his reaction as I was driving through the day was a lot different than driving at night. And because we drove back when it was dark, from Northern California from Eureka to Portland, Oregon, Eureka, California to Portland, Oregon, visiting my buddy Jeff John. His reaction was different at night because he couldn't see anything. And so when we were going around a corner or whatever, he couldn't see the cliff diving off to 1,000 feet. So he felt much safer driving at night because being from the Midwest and seeing, what he called a mountain range was just hills to us, and it was so fun to see that through his eyes. That's really why I've been telling him for years, you got to come out to the Northwest. I want to show you the Northwest. I want to show you how beautiful it is. And that might even be a business venture for me, or, because that is... So let me go back, because I like to ramble and I like to rant, and I don't write anything down because I like to be off the cuff here, and I kind of like to, I don't want to feel scripted or anything like that. And I think that's kind of the direction I want to go. Going back to what I'm saying about not working, and maybe it's the millennial. I don't know. Am I millennial, born in '87? You decide. I don't want to work. I don't want to grind anymore. But at the same time, I do want to find a source of income that brings me pure and utter joy, Whether that's being my RV and camp hosting from, national park to state park, go to Colorado, go see everything amazing there. I mostly want to head back west and bounce around, national parks, state parks. There's so much public land out there. It's unbelievable. Just do a little bit of research. Go type into Google, type in graphic continental U.S. or United States of America public land, and just look at that map alone, and even national park, whether it be BLM, Army Corps of Engineers. I know there's one or two more that I'm forgetting, but go look at that and see how much this country has set aside that nobody can purchase or sell. Well, we'll see if Trump has his way here, but nobody can purchase or sell, and it is for us. It is I'm sorry to quote Joe all the time, but he's my main inspiration to do all this stuff. He's kind of my he's kind of a mentor to me. So if you find a lot of parallels, and that annoys you, I apologize. But, every great person had a great role model. And, he's definitely a role model in my life. But let me go back to what he was saying. He was saying that this is your land. This is our land. It's everybody's land. And that's what public land is there for. It's so we don't build these concrete jungles in these beautiful settings. And I was listening to him today. He was talking to Dottie, and he was talking about how we, God, I lost it. He was talking about how, you know, let me back up. There's so much shit stacked on shit, okay? And that's my own view when you get into the city. And we've only been doing this for 100 years. I mean, yeah, New York City's been around for longer than that. But we have only the Industrial Revolution is propelled us for the last 100 years. And we've only been doing this kind of society for the last 100 years. It used to be that your city was, oh, it used to be that your city was limited to the size of your rural areas, and now due to transportation and we get tomatoes from Mexico, you know, um, we get bananas from other countries. We get fresh produce, and we have found technologies to ship them thousands of miles before they even hit the grocery store. And we have found technologies and ways to do it. We really become out of touch of this earth and this planet, and I want to kind of get back to that. And that's also my taste for minimalist living, is that you realize that how much our society relies on just so many factors that logistically it's so hard to break down and put into compartments and really just pinpoint. I don't know, just it's hard to pinpoint what technology, what life would be without technology, or without the society we have today. It's a scary, delicate world we live in. And I think that's why they found studies that, I think this is correct, that people in third world countries, it's either third world countries or people that have lived in villages, or, like Aborigines, or people that have, let me just be very general here. People that have loincloths and spears and live in villages of less than 150 people, it may be an ignorance is bliss kind of scenario, but they found statistically they are much happier. So it's just an interesting dynamic to have. But anyways, so yeah, you're. Let me end this because it looks like I'm coming up on 28 minutes here. Uriah had a good point that it was hard for me to see my hometown change so much, and it had gotten to a point I can't even afford to live in my own hometown anymore, without getting some massive degree in, you know, living, being in debt. Back to my initial subject of to keep up with that society, I'd have to be in so much more debt than I've accrued in the last year between a house and a car and a brand new car and all that other stuff. This is manageable debt to me. I mean, I could bat this away with a blink of an eye, and not really, have too many repercussions from it. But and I guess what I mean by that is, I have my home. I can make an income off my house. I have, as my girlfriend says, my car hoarding problem. I have four vehicles that I don't even use. If you want to include the RV, the RV has more of a practical use, obviously, than a 67 Charger, a 2000 Geo Metro, and an 87 Ram 50. One was supposed to be a rock crawler. One was supposed to be my classic car. And then the other one, since I had stopped using it, and the end of February, beginning of March. I always had the intention of putting it on the market. There's still some sentimental value with that. So, but now it's do or die. It's time to figure it out. Time to, go get him, champ. But all right. Well, I think I'll end on that note. If anybody has any comments or questions or whatever, please put it up there. I want to know what you want to hear from me, or if you have any ideas of what you want to see. Because if I do turn my house into an income and I do get on the road, my initial idea, like I said, is to go see interesting places. Are there places you want me to go to see that you either A, have heard so much about, or B, have been there? Or even, I would like to have a dialogue with someone. If this does become a thing, let me drive out to your place. Let me understand who you are. And I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are kind of acquaintances. So if you've lasted 31 minutes into this video, and you have a story to tell, or maybe, something you want to let other people know, let me know. Let's set something up. Let's get something going here. I want to start doing this regularly, and let's have a conversation. Let's put our tinfoil hats on. Let's explore all avenues of, I want to know where you come from and where you think. Anyways, all right. Let me kill this video for the 5th time. If I know you, I love y'all. If I don't, then thanks for watching. And hopefully I'll put another video up on here. And all right.